Hi everyone, my name is Jeff Johnson. It is my professional ePortfolio for the MIT program at Fort Hays State University. As you've already noticed, the video tour actually starts on the homepage. I figure that's the best place to put it because if you want to know how to get through the website, might as well put it in the place that they're going to go to first. So that's why I decided to put it there. I know one of my reviewers was like, I'm not sure if this is where he should put it. I'm like, well, but to me it makes sense. And you'll notice that a lot of things that I did in making a lot of changes was really based on practicality and content. And so when there's places where it's supposed to be on a checklist or whatever, I'll explain that real quick. Now, for one, you notice that I try to keep things, nice and streamlined. You got the candidate info here. I figured everything dealing with candidate info should be all in the one spot and not in a document that you have to open up somewhere else, because, that can add a lot and make it more difficult for people. So based on what, I noticed from my peer reviewer, they did something very similar. You have all the information easy to see. So personal introduction, goals, resume. Notice, once again, I made it nice and big so it'd be able to see it easily right there and then. Same thing with the teaching philosophy. It's just, you can just easily see it. Don't have to open up anywhere else. And you notice that, like, as far as my coloring goes, you notice that, like, it starts with the darker, it gets a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter. It's just kind of like easier way into it. It actually makes it easier to digest the information. Now you notice that I don't like blank pages often, so except in this particular case, because I noticed that like some content wasn't exactly activity evidence, and a lot of this stuff wasn't really related, and I didn't want to put it on the one page because no one hates having to scroll through a bunch of stuff. That's really lame. And so I did divide it based a little bit on importance as well as some other factors. For one, the professional development gets its own page because it really is that important. One of the things I learned about this, doing this ePortfolio, is just how important this professional development plan was, because so much goes back to that. The standards, the issues that are raised, when to do it. I mean, you name it. It was so important that this be, that it have its own page, as well as it needed to be good because it's a good jumping off point. And it really does provide the backbone. Now, here's where things might get a little bit different based on, the checklist that you probably have to do. Instead of putting all the presentations in one area and all the videos in another and all the activity evidence, well, number one, the presentations I created were what I did for the face-to-face videos. And so it made sense to put those two things together, as well as the article summaries that related to what I was doing as well. And so you'll notice, okay, for instance, this is me talking about how we can integrate the gradebook with Google Classroom. And then, of course, I added in some data, which we didn't necessarily have to do, but because it's something I learned part of the MIT program, I have the Google Forms of how I did it, as well as the results that you see here. And of course, the research for it. Now, the other thing as well, I don't like a lot to see is a bunch of text. It actually comes from my screenwriting days. So if you want to see the standards I use, I did as a collapsible. So when you first see the page, it actually looks kind of nice. And if you want to know information, just open it up. And you see the second professional training session. This dealt with web-based learning with these, district issue MacBooks that we got, which actually has become really helpful because of COVID-19. I'm actually beginning a lot of thank yous for that. Same thing, I got the data from the pre and post surveys. The article summary that looked at closed captioning. Now, one of my reviewers said, well, I didn't really see that in the face-to-face. Well, it's actually in the presentation, not in the face-to-face. I couldn't get to everything, unfortunately, but it's basically like, how can you use YouTube tools to be able to create closed captioning for both, DHH students or just students in general? And that's something that I talked about in the article summary as well. And the number 3 was actually teaching students how to use Google Sites for their own ePortfolios, which is something that I actually learned from, creating my own. And I was like, this is actually really good. So they got a session on knowing how to do that as well as their data and basically an article summary as to why ePortfolios are important. The last thing here are the extra resources. I didn't want to make it too uniform, like having them all on the left-hand side, so I kind of changed it up a little bit. But the one thing that I really have found, for one, there was some surprises about a lot of this. And for one, just how easy it was to create a lot of these documents. But that's because so much of what we learned in this program was knowing how to create those kind of documents. The needs assessments, the interaction, with Google Slides or whatever else. And probably the thing am most proud of are the interactive elements. I always thought, okay, I wanted to make things interactive for students. You go one place, you open up another thing. I thought, well, DVD menus could do that, back in the day. Now it's like they can do this with Google Sites. They can do this with the Google slide presentation. And even one of the things I'm very proud of is this Light Up the Night, which Light Up the Night is like an open house for us. And basically what it is that we show off what we can do and try to get more potential students to come to our school and its district. And so what's great about this is that when they go on YouTube, if they missed out on it, they can go to YouTube and be able to see it on their phones and then be able to see 306 degrees of what it was that was going on that day. And so it's something I was super proud of. I was able to help out our administration with this, as well as highlight our school, and it really also the student getting to work with it, he learned a lot of things too. So, and I divide into 3 sections: administrative, resources, and support. Just everything I've done so far for them, as well as the student resources, as well as for teachers, as well as some extra little things. The reflection, since it's not exactly candidate info, and it should be opened up because it is quite lengthy. I know one of my reviewers said, oh, it's kind of lengthy. I'm like, well, but I still talked about a lot of stuff. So still some changes might be made, but for the most part, it's okay. This last page here, evaluations, has both the peer reviewers, as well as where the faculty review is going to go when that is done. But as far as I really had to really consider for my peer reviewers, my placement, making sure okay, a lot of this stuff, these checked items, they're going to need to know this. So I was like, well, maybe I'll explain enough in the video. But once again, I feel like I learned a lot by doing this, and I feel like it's something I can actually do in the real world. And maybe I might even be considering a job for this now, just because of what is possible. All right, well, take care and enjoy it.